A vigil was held in Vancouver last night to honor those killed in a ramming attack at a Filipino street festival late Saturday night. Several dignitaries were in attendance, including BC's Premier and Liberal leader Mark Carney. Good afternoon. 11 people were killed in the attack, with people saying the victims range in age from 5 to 65.
More than 24 others were injured, and murder charges have been filed against the man accused of driving an SUV down a street packed with festival goers.
Saw just carnage. It was like a bowling ball hitting bowling pins and bodies flying in the air.
The Lapu-Lapu Festival was winding down when the attack happened on Saturday night. Police say attendees grabbed the suspect behind the vehicle before he was eventually taken into custody. He has been identified as 30-year-old Vancouver resident Kaiji Adam Low. So far, he's been charged with 8 counts of second-degree murder.
And for more on the aftermath of the attack, we're joined live by CTV's Scott Hurst. Scott, what are we learning about the suspect and his alleged motives?
Nathan, first and foremost, really just an unthinkable tragedy, how quickly so much joy can turn into so much pain and suffering. The suspect is already facing charges, but we're learning from police that they're expecting over the hours and days as this investigation continues that the Crown is likely to approve more charges in this case. And police have identified, as you mentioned, the suspect as a 30-year-old Vancouver man, Kaiji Adam Low. The incident, according to police, however, is not being investigated at this time as a terror attack, as it often does when we see these mass casualty events. One of the first things we think about, could it be related to a terror incident? But that is not how it's being investigated at this time. But a clear motive is still not confirmed. The suspect remains in custody at this time. But we're also hearing that the suspect is no stranger to law enforcement. According to police, has a long history of interactions with police, and also, according to investigators, a long history of interaction with healthcare professionals, particularly as it relates to mental health. Here's more from Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim on the mood in the city in the wake of this terrible tragedy.
I think my feelings represent what everyone else is feeling in the city. It's we're reeling. There's a lot of sadness, there's fear, and there's anger. And, you know, people are just trying to make sense of this horrific incident. And, you know, it's a tough place to be in right now.
Of course, a lot of questions are always asked in the aftermath of such terrible events. In the situation that we saw in Vancouver, and we are learning from Vancouver's mayor, is that he is ordering a full review of the city's event safety measures. However, he did say, and according to police, Vancouver does host thousands of community events and festivals like this that go off without a hitch. But in the wake of this terrible tragedy that saw 11 people killed and many more injured, we're also learning that the death toll could rise as the grim reality of what happened. There are often and demands for more answers and a demand for more to be done to stop anything like this from happening again, Nathan.
Yeah, a lot of feelings of sadness. And we've heard from the leaders. What about the Filipino community? How are they responding?
The Filipino community is grieving. It is a tight-knit community in Vancouver, and they were putting on this fun-filled festival in celebration of the culture in British Columbia, the Filipino-Canadian culture in Vancouver. It was an event that saw so many stages, putting on musical acts and other celebrations like that. There were food trucks there. Families of all ages were coming out. As we heard, the victims range in age from 65 to as young as 5 years old. So for the community specifically, this is a time for them to grieve and come together. They're getting support pouring in from all over the world, really, in the aftermath of this terrible incident. And we're also learning in the aftermath that a 24-hour emergency center was set up at a nearby community center. We're seeing the images here of vigils that have already taken place. And we learned that multiple local churches also opened their doors in the immediate aftermath for those in the community who needed support. Once again, this festival being put on in honor of the proud Filipino-Canadian community in Vancouver. They are now coming to grips with the terrible tragedy, as are so many people in the city of Vancouver, Nathan.
All right, CTV's Scott Hurst with the latest on the Vancouver attack. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan.
Well, to other news, following a 37-day election campaign, Canadians head to the polls to elect the next federal government.
Polls are open here in Ontario, giving Canadians the opportunity to make their voices heard. Polls opened in Atlantic Canada this morning. They opened first there, with voters casting their ballots in Newfoundland and Labrador, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre cast his ballot in his Ottawa area riding this morning. Yesterday, the final day of campaigning was subdued following the tragic events in Vancouver, with party leaders each making their final pitch to voters.
We're going to be kicking off 100 days of change, and it involves passing 3 sweeping change bills. It's going to be the Affordability for a Change Act, the Bring Home Our Jobs for a Change Act, the Safe Streets for a Change Act, and we will keep Parliament open all summer long until every single one of these bills is passed for a change.
We are taking every dollar that we get from these counter tariffs we're putting on the Americans, and we're not putting it in our pocket. We're not using it for a tax cut, as some others have suggested. We're giving it right back to the workers. We're giving it right back to the workers and the businesses that are affected, because they're the ones. Because that's what you do when you realize that we're all in this. We're all in this together.
We are all better off when we take care of each other. Like, that's how we build a better world. And it's my offer as leader, it's our vision as a party, that we are stronger, we are safer, we are healthier, we are just simply better when we look out for one another.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump has weighed in on the election, reiterating his call for Canada to become the 51st state. His post on Truth Social reads in part, "Good luck to the great people of Canada. Elect the man who has the strength and wisdom to cut your taxes in half, increase your military power, no more artificially drawn lines from many years ago, free access with no border, all positives with no negatives. It was meant to be."
The final round of Nano's polling on behalf of CTV News and the Globe and Mail was released. The last round of polling shows the Liberals on top with just over 42% support. The Conservatives are a close second with just under 40%. The NDP round out the top 3 with just under 8% support. The Bloc Québécois, Green Party, and People's Party of Canada make up the bottom 3. And when it comes to Canadians,
the race is the tightest in the 2 most important regions that are up for grabs, Ontario and British Columbia. And British Columbia, there's only 1 percentage point difference between the Liberals and the Conservatives. And in Ontario, that 6-point gap from a day or 2 ago is now only a 2 percentage point gap in Ontario. So, you know, when you think of how close it is, you know, the thing is those are 2 of the key battlegrounds. And in those two key battlegrounds, things are tightening up. In Atlantic Canada and Quebec, the Liberals are comfortably ahead. In the prairies, the Conservatives are comfortably ahead. But in battleground Ontario and BC, it's really tightening up. And, you know, when it comes to those vote splits and the races between the Liberals and the Conservatives, who knows what could happen? A lot of it will have to do with how good the on-the-ground organization is for the 2 frontrunners.
and when it comes to Canadians' preferred Prime Minister, Liberal leader Mark Carney remains atop the polls with just under 52% support. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is second with just over 32% support. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is third with nearly 6%. The leaders of the Bloc Québécois, Green Party, and People's Party of Canada are all polling with less than 3% support.
And be sure to stay with CTV News this evening for results, analysis, and perspective from all across the country. Our election night coverage gets underway at 7 p.m. Eastern, led by Omar Sachedina and Vashi Capellans.
And we have more news in a moment, but first, here's a live look at the city this afternoon. The warm weather continues today, coming off a lovely Sunday. There is some rain in the forecast. Lindsay Morrison is here with a look at the current conditions, and yeah, it's starting to feel really good.
Yeah, it was a spectacular Sunday. We do have some wet weather in the forecast, but it's not really until tomorrow, and with that, we could even get a few thunderstorms rumbling through. More on that in a moment, but let's talk about today. It is a fantastic day to get outside, cast your ballot. Temperatures already in the upper teens around the Golden Horseshoe. And at this point, it's looking as though many communities are going to climb into the 20s. Once again, you will notice cooler conditions by the lake. Toronto Island's 13 degrees compared to Toronto Pearson at 19. We have a breezy winds coming out of the southeast at this hour. And while all is pretty calm and quiet on the satellite and radar, that is expected to change as we make our way into the day tomorrow. But here's today at a glance, your election forecast. Pleasant conditions, overall pretty calm winds, lots of sunshine as well. We'll take you through what you need to know when it comes to that thunderstorm risk just ahead in your main weather forecast. For now, Michelle, I'll send it over to you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Well, the province is proposing new legislation aiming to crack down on crime.
The Ford government says the changes would strengthen the court's ability to deal with serious offenses. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris joins us live now with more. Siobhan.
One of the problems here has been staffing in Ontario courts. We've actually seen that there haven't been enough judges and other workers to move cases through quickly enough, so cases as serious as attempted murder have been thrown out. The government's now making more moves to try to address that problem. Legislation coming later this week will move to streamline the judicial appointments process, moving to a pool-based model. The government is also allocating 17 more judges to deal with a backlog of cases and cases that the government says are increasingly complex. The province is also adding new supports for guns and gangs units and a brand new cybercrime and cryptocurrency prosecution team.
Team members provide advice to police at the investigative stage to make sure cases are managed and prosecuted effectively. This is a crucial part of the system because cybercrime cases tend to be large and complex. Once charges are laid and cases move into the justice system, Crown attorneys, the cybercrime team, and the police involved with these files make sure they are prosecuted fairly and effectively.
On this federal election day, Ontario's Attorney General is calling on whichever party forms government next to take a tougher stand on crime. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan and Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. We return to one of our top stories. Voters in Toronto are heading to the polls today.
Several ridings in the city are seen as key battlegrounds. Our Natalie Johnson has been following the race in University-Rosedale and joins us live with more on the race there. Natalie.
Hi, Michelle. That's right. University-Rosedale has been a Liberal stronghold for many years in the heart of Toronto and has been held by Chrystia Freeland, who, of course, was a central figure in triggering this election. The former Deputy Prime Minister and former Finance Minister resigned from Justin Trudeau's cabinet back in December. That led to Prime Minister Trudeau deciding to step down, triggering a Liberal leadership race. Freeland then competed for the Liberal leadership, ultimately losing to Mark Carney, but remaining a central figure in the Liberal government as Transport Minister. Bring in Serena Purdy, though, who is competing to take University-Rosedale from the Liberals. We have seen NDP support in this neck of the woods on the municipal side, with a large portion of this area supporting Olivia Chow's Progressive administration. Purdy believes that Progressive support has been building in this riding federally as well. Housing and healthcare among her top priorities. Here's more from the candidates.
I've been thinking a lot today about how different things feel today than they did in December. At the beginning of December, when it looked like the Liberal Party was headed for certain defeat, that we might even lose our official party status. It was a very bleak, dark time. And from the minute that President Trump threatened the 25% tariffs on Canada, that was November 25th, I realized this was an existential moment for the country, and it was time to get serious. Resigning was the hardest political thing I've done in my life. A lot of people were angry with me. Some of my colleagues were. But I knew at that moment it was the right thing to do. Every day since, I have been more convinced it's the right thing today. It was the right thing to do. And today, when I see a truly, resurrected Liberal Party with a great new leader, I feel just so happy about where we are and happy that we're doing the right thing for Canada.
People, when I talk to them at the door, they're asking for change. They're concerned about how long we've gone without solving things like the housing crisis, how long we've gone letting things sort of slide into privatization in the healthcare system. and a lot of people are fed up, and it is time for change. There is so much progressive support here. Provincially, they showed that. They have shown support for Olivia Chow. The riding boundary changes moved into Chris Glover territory, and he's been an incredible friend and supporter. So there's so much energy here that I think people are really showing and showing up.
Meanwhile, Liz Grade is running for the Conservatives in this University-Rosedale riding. We do have requests for comment into her, hoping to speak to her this afternoon. Driving through the riding this morning, certainly lawn signs for all three of the major party candidates. Lots of teams and staff out trying to pull the vote, knocking on doors. It is a beautiful day here in the city, and everyone trying to take advantage of this beautiful weather to get people out of their homes to the polling station to make sure they can get their voices heard in this election. We'll bring you the latest tonight at 5 and 6 o'clock. Reporting live, I'm Natalie Johnson. Nathan and Michelle, over to you.
Thank you, Natalie. Police are searching for a driver after a stolen vehicle was involved in a crash in Etobicoke. It happened just before 9 p.m. near Kipling and Lakeshore Boulevard. 2 vehicles were damaged, with one striking a building and the other hitting a pole. Police say one of the vehicles was stolen, with the driver taking off on foot. Paramedics say the people in the other vehicle suffered minor injuries.
A note for subway riders, there is a service disruption to be aware of this week beginning today, lasting through Friday. Service on line 2 between Jane and Ossington will end at 11 p.m. The early closure is to accommodate track work in the area. Shuttle buses will run in place of trains. Runnymede, High Park, Lansdowne and Dufferin stations will all be closed. All other stations will be open for customers to purchase fares and then transfer to bus routes.
Still to come, the conclave to choose the next pope will begin May 7th. We'll have more on the ceremony a little later in the show.
But we return once again to one of the big stories of the day. Canadians across the country are heading to the ballot box in this federal election. CTV's Colton Prale joins us live from Ottawa with more. Colton, wow, the day has come. 5 weeks of campaigning are in the books, and this really is an unprecedented election where the U.S. president factored in big time. We just read a few minutes earlier that latest tweet from Donald Trump. What were some of the big storylines as far as you're concerned?
Well, certainly he plays a huge role, and the fact that he's putting this tweet out on Election Day is certainly going to be something to pay attention to focus to, and to wonder how much this is going to impact voting. We know that a number of voters are undecided until the final few days of a campaign, some making that choice right as they head up to the ballot box, and that ballot box question differs depending on which party you're leaning towards. Polling shows that for Conservatives, it's been about change, it's been about affordability, it's been about housing. For Liberal supporters, it's much more focused on a defense to Donald Trump. It's been focused on international relations, and it's been focused on not just our economy, but the global economy, and preparing for the uncertainty that will come with this Trump administration in the White House for several more years. And obviously, that is one of those things that could shift voters either way when he's making statements like that morning of. Other things to watch, other big focuses of this campaign. I talked about change. Most interesting in that is perhaps the Conservative change themselves, because while we've seen a narrowing of the polling between the Liberals and the Conservatives at the tail end of this campaign, we've seen a divergence in the preferred prime ministerial polling between Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre, with that gap getting bigger at the end of the campaign. Now Carney over 51% in preferred prime ministerial polling. We've seen the Conservatives remove Pierre Poilievre from some of their biggest broadcast ads in the last 10 days. They've zeroed in on a message that is much more centered around their policies, centered around a new face in Ottawa. And will that resonate with voters? Is that a change possibly that needed to come sooner? Could they have tightened that gap even more if they'd focused more on the policies and less on the leader? That's been a really big storyline throughout all of this. And then the other one that I think is really important to watch for, and certainly will be a huge challenge for whoever the next prime minister is the gap between support. We've seen not only the geographic divide, Western alienation, Western separation has been a big topic throughout this campaign, but the demographic difference as well is really important. Older Canadians are skewing much more liberal than younger Canadians, and whoever becomes the next prime minister, because of the fact that this is essentially turned into a two-horse race, you're going to end up with a very large swath of Canadians voting for a losing party, and that might mean that a number of Western Canadians or a number of older Canadians may not find themselves recognizing and finding themselves mirrored in the government that forms tonight. So whoever becomes prime minister tomorrow will have a massive challenge, not just dealing with the economy, dealing with Donald Trump and the many other challenges that exist, but with making sure that Canadians feel as though they are still a part of this country and still represented by that new government.
And a way to be a part of this country is to have your say and to vote today. People are voting as we speak. And really the message from all the leaders and the candidates has been there's so much at stake, and that seems to be translating to more voter engagement. We saw the record advance voting numbers. What are the signs? Are we going to have good voter turnout today, at least in Ottawa and here in Toronto? We got nice weather, so that doesn't hurt.
Absolutely. That's always a benefit, and anything you can do to make that voting process easier is a big factor for these parties. We have seen the enthusiasm. You look at the rallies from Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney over the last several days. They are bringing out massive, massive crowds, and anytime I'm on the ground chatting with voters at these rallies or elsewhere, you hear the enthusiasm. You hear the understanding that people really do feel this is a much, much more consequential election than we've had in recent memory. There is that enthusiasm, and so much of the results tonight could come down to which party is better at getting out the vote today. It is so tight right now in the polling that it could just come down to the ground game. And certainly, I think, like you mentioned, we saw such an interest in the advanced polling. It's important to note those 7.3 million Canadians, that's about a quarter of the registered electorate at the start of this campaign. So we could be seeing a significant uptick in voter turnout this year compared to years past.
Let's hope so. High voter turnout is always a good thing. Colton Prale will really appreciate it. Have a great day. I know it's a busy one for you.
It will be. Thank you.
Moving on to some other news now. In the sexual assault trial of 5 former members of Canada's World Junior Hockey team is underway again in London, Ontario. Michael McLeod, Carter Hart, Alex Formenton, Dylan Dubé, and Cal Foote have all pleaded not guilty to sexual assault. A new jury was selected on Friday after the judge declared a mistrial and dismissed the first jury. The players have been charged in connection with an alleged assault in 2018. The judge is expected to end proceedings early today to allow jurors time to vote.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has declared a 3-day ceasefire in Ukraine in May, marking the 80th anniversary of Victory Day in the Second World War. The Kremlin says the 72-hour ceasefire will begin May 8th and is calling on Ukraine to participate. However, it adds that if Ukraine violates the ceasefire, Russia will offer an adequate and effective response. So far, Ukraine has not commented on the ceasefire proposal.
The International Court of Justice is beginning hearings today about Israel's blockade of aid into Gaza. United Nations and Palestinian representatives have accused Israel of breaking international law by refusing to let aid into Gaza. Since March 2nd, Israel has completely cut off all supplies to Gaza's more than 2 million residents. Israel has accused the UN of failing to root out employees of its Palestinian refugee agency who are members of militant groups.
Houthi rebels say dozens of African migrants have been killed in a U.S. strike on Yemen. At least 68 people are dead after the airstrike hit a detention center controlled by the militant group. The American military has not commented on the strike, but has intensified its bombing campaign against the Iran-backed group over the past 6 weeks. It's been targeting the Houthis because of their attacks on shipping in the Red Sea and Israel.
A widespread power outage has knocked out electricity across much of Spain, Portugal, and in parts of France. Officials are trying to restore power, and the cause of the outage remains unclear at this point. It has shut off traffic lights and is causing chaos on the roads as well as airports and train stations.
The Vatican has confirmed the start date of the conclave to elect the next pope. 135 cardinals will enter the Sistine Chapel starting May 7th to elect the successor of Pope Francis. The decision was made by cardinals this morning during their first meeting since Pope Francis's funeral on Saturday. The Sistine Chapel is now closed to the public in preparation for the start of the conclave.
Well, as we've mentioned, conditions weather-wise pretty pleasant for getting outside and casting a ballot today. But of course, this is a federal election. Here's a look at what the weather looks like in many different parts of our country, from coast to coast. Beautiful conditions across southern Ontario, southern Quebec. It's pretty active, though, in northern Ontario today, with the risk of freezing rain in some areas, too. Now, tonight's low here in Toronto expected to be around 12 degrees. Mainly clear skies, a little bit of an increase in cloud cover overnight. And then tomorrow, we're talking about the risk of thunderstorms. And yes, they could be severe in nature. We'll detail the timing of them after this break. You're watching CTV News at noon. We'll be right back.
Well, art is everywhere in Toronto, and a gallery in Yorkville is now celebrating the works of Andy Warhol with a free exhibit. CTV's Jessica Smith is checking out the exhibit titled Andy Warhol Factory Made, and I'm told it's super, Jess. I think that's referring to those soup cans behind you.
Super indeed, and you can definitely come down and check it out, Michelle. It's going to be fantastic. And you know what the best part is? It's my favorite thing. It's my favorite price. It is free to attend. I'm joined here by Alan. We're at the Tagliatelle Galleries. Talk to me about the Andy Warhol exhibit. Everyone knows the soup cans. A lot of folks know the Madonna photo, but there's so much more, and you have a number of his works here, even some wigs. Tell me all about it.
This is an exhibition called Factory Made that started at our location in New York City. And it was so successful that we decided to do it a traveling show. And the exhibition showcased over 50 artworks by Andy Warhol that span over a period of 30 years. The exhibition is free for everyone to come and enjoy, and is going to be available until May 1st.
So you have to come down right away to come check it out. I know people know some of the iconic photos, but you have a number of his works here. Why was it important to include a little bit of everything? Because I feel like people have an idea of maybe what they know about Andy Warhol, but there's so much more that he has to offer.
Yes, we have a lot of the most iconic images that he's very well known for, but to your point, we were able to secure quite a diverse variety of works that can give the visitor a really insight into how passionate he was about his practice and how diverse it is.
And why was it important that it's free? I know accessible art is really important. Toronto has a fantastic art scene, but why was it important to this gallery, to you, to make this accessible to anybody who's walking through the city, maybe visiting the city, coming from really all over the country?
Andy Warhol is one of the most iconic names of the 20th century. And so for us, we spend over a year trying to secure all these works through different consignment agreements with our collectors. We are a commercial gallery, but whenever we have a chance to bring a body of work like this, I think it's like extremely special. And the public in Toronto has an opportunity to really come in and enjoy quite a variety selection of pieces.
Well, Alan, thank you so much. You can check out the gallery online. You visit them on Instagram, Tagliatelle Galleries. You have until May 1st to check it out, and there's another one coming up. I'll have all those details a bit later on, but I'll send things back inside to the studio.
All right, thank you, Jess. All right, let's talk about the forecast. Let's get into it. Yesterday was great. Today's great. Also, of course, it's election day, so really no excuse to get out there.
Oh, no, it's just gorgeous. That really puts a spring in your step. At comfortable temperatures, we have the bright sunshine, and it's really a nice way to kind of end the month of April.
I think so. And I think if you're able, if your polling station is maybe close to where you live, why not walk there today? Get outside, get some fresh air, because tomorrow it's still going to be warm. In fact, we're going to encounter even more in the way of heat and humidity. But we also have the risk of some thunderstorms. And this looks like perhaps the most volatile setup that we've seen so far this spring. A bit more of a summertime setup with that heat and then a cold front swinging through. Weather is brought to you by the Pressler Law Firm Injury Lawyers. You don't pay unless they win. Before we talk about that active weather potential, let's once again reflect on this past weekend. It was fantastic. Sunday, more specifically, was fantastic. Saturday was a bit cool with some brisk winds. And here's what we woke up to this morning. Beautiful sunshine, some fair weather clouds here and there, but really not much to speak of today. Here's a look at the current temperatures. We've already surpassed the initially expected forecast daytime high of 18 here in Toronto. It's 19 degrees right now, and at this point, I think it's pretty likely that we're going to see many communities around the Golden Horseshoe hit that 20-degree threshold, maybe climb even higher than that. So an above seasonal day. Once again, we've had quite a few of those over the last week here, and loads of sunshine through the night tonight. Clear skies into this evening. Watch for clouds developing once we move past midnight, dropping to a low near 12, which, as you can see, is once again above seasonal. And then temperature-wise tomorrow, we're talking into the 20s, maybe mid-20s across central sections of southern Ontario, maybe even the first 30-degree day in parts of southwestern Ontario. Again, I'm going to reiterate that it's likely to be a little cooler by the lake here in Toronto, and then, of course, parts of Peel, Halton, and Durham regions, and into the Hamilton area, too, right along that Lake Ontario shoreline. Not much to show you right now on the satellite and radar, but we do have a Colorado low that's going to swing through, so that would bring us a little bit of active weather anyway, but we've got this warm, humid air mass. We've got a cold front that's going to slice through. It's going to make for a bit of a volatile situation with thunderstorms potentially bubbling up as early as the morning in some areas, but a heads up around the GTA for one round in the afternoon, another perhaps in the evening hours. You can see the front defined there, and with the potential for severe storms, we're talking thunder, lightning, heavy rain, gusty winds, and maybe the potential for some hail. This is all going to clear out. Wednesday looks like a beautiful sunny day, but it is certainly going to be cooler behind that cold front. In fact, we go from a daytime high of 23 tomorrow, feeling like 28, to an overnight low of only 3 degrees. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, highs of 13. Again, there's that sunshine for Wednesday, but look, unsettled with showers for Thursday, which is also the first day of May. That's your look at the weather. Nathan, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. Well, the Blue Jays and New York Yankees played a doubleheader yesterday because their game Saturday was postponed due to rain.
To right center field, a long run for Springer, and he's not going to get there. It's off the wall on the fly, and 3 runs will score on the double.
The Jays got knocked around in Game 1, giving up 6 runs in the 3rd inning. They ended up losing 11-2.
Line drive left center. This will get a run home. Chisholm in to score. Dominguez into second with a double. It is 3-1.
The team didn't perform much better in Game 2, going on to lose it 5-1. The Jays have today off before beginning a series with the Boston Red Sox at Rogers Center tomorrow.
AFC Toronto were looking for their first ever win when they squared off with Ottawa yesterday afternoon.
All played in the middle, but one back quickly. Ezekiel's ball over the top.
Here's Hunter.
An opportunity for Hunter, and Hunter has got it.
Kaylee Hunter scored the first goal in AFC Toronto's history in the 94th minute, but it wasn't enough as Ottawa Rapid FC won the game 2-1. Toronto's back on the field Thursday against the Calgary Wild.
Still to come, the benefits of being humble. We'll have more on new data which indicates humble people make better partners. That's when we come back. The most popular chatbot in the world, ChatGPT, is estimated to get more than 5 billion visits per month. But in the last while, users may have noticed a difference in its personality, if you can call it that.
ChatGPT has gotten a little too nice. For more, we're joined by CTV Science and Tech Specialist Dan Riskin. Dan, you say ChatGPT has become a lot like Smithers from The Simpsons, always sucking up to Mr. Burns. Tell us more.
Yeah, and we're Mr. Burns. So we sit down at the computer and we say, hey, ChatGPT, I've written this paragraph. Can you just give me some comments on it? ChatGPT will be like, that is the best paragraph I've ever seen. You've done an amazing job. You've pulled together these themes. And I know this because I use ChatGPT, for example, to look for typos and stuff that I write. I'll often use it for things like that. And it's constantly showering me with praise. And I have to admit, I thought it was because I was really good. I was like, yeah, my writing is pretty good. No wonder it's saying these nice things. But then I read this article that this is a big trend, that they're having a lot of issues with this, that people are trusting GPT less because they're seeing so much of this. And once I knew it was a design feature, I was like, oh, well, this is no good. And it turns out it's happening because sometimes ChatGPT will show you 2 different responses and ask you which one you like more. And in those kinds of experiments, people tend to choose the complementary one more than the one that is sort of got some hard facts that might be kind of hard to hear. And so the algorithms have sort of taken that as a lesson. And so right now, not because it was made to be like that, but because it sort of evolved that way, it's too complementary. So just a note that if you're using ChatGPT, just don't trust it. Trust it a little less than you were before. You shouldn't be trusting it to start with, but just know that if it's taking a really kind tone, it might not be that you're as great as it's saying you are.
Well, and that might not change?
Well, the company has not sort of addressed this, and so you would think they'd want to change it so that the trust would stay high with ChatGPT. But for now, if you are using GPT and you want to get around this, you can tell it, I want you to be rude to me. I want you to act like you're an angry professor and you don't like me very much. I've tried that, and it works pretty well.
All right, so this is another study on being humble. And, of course, it's important to be humble, but this might be the key to a better romantic relationship.
Yeah, this is a nice study that sort of validates something that I think we all sort of intuitively know, that every once in a while you got to admit you're wrong, especially when you are wrong. Not every time, but sometimes you might be wrong. And I definitely know when I know some of the times that I'm wrong, certainly. And in a relationship, so they took 74 heterosexual couples in long-term relationships, and they had them fill out this survey that sort of just addressed how often you are willing to admit that you were not the right one in this instance. And there's a nice correlation. The couples that have people who are willing to admit that they're wrong, they tend to say that the overall happiness with the relationship is higher, and they tend to have fights less often and with sort of less intensity. So it's just a nice trait to have, to be humble, and it pays off in a relationship.
Good advice.
Well, you don't have to be humble about this. You are one of Canada's top experts on bats. You have been studying them for a long time, and you brought with us the latest bat study that has something to do with when bats drink, they change their flight?
Yeah, so when a bat flies, it flaps its wings, but the wings, the downstroke, the wings would get in the water if they didn't change something. But if they don't flap their wings hard enough, they're going to fall in the water. So we know bats will fly close to the water and take a little drink, but we hadn't had high-speed videos that we could measure things on. And this group that's an international collaboration with China and Cornell University and Brown University, a bunch of different people, they made these beautiful videos and sort of got to the answer. And the truth is, when the bats are doing this, they don't flap their wings as big as they normally do. The amplitude of the wing beats are not as big. So here's a bat not drinking. You see the wingtips go well below the head. But when they're drinking, they don't flap the wings as much, but they flap them faster. And that's how they manage to get enough lift to stay in the air. And listen, any excuse to watch high-speed videos of bats doing stuff, I am in for this all day.
And does this teach us anything?
Well, there are a lot of micro-air vehicles, is this technology that they like to build little spy bots that can fly around, and they're really moving away from helicopters to flapping things, especially flapping things that look sort of biological, because if you're being spied on, you might not notice when something flies by like that. And so they make for really good spy bots, and so military loves stuff like this, so that's probably who's funding it.
CTV Science and Tech Specialist Dan Riskin, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, a trial began in France today for a group of men accused of robbing Kim Kardashian more than 8 years ago. Kardashian says she thought she was going to be killed when criminals broke into her bedroom in Paris, tied her up, and stole more than $6 million worth of jewelry in 2016. She's expected to take the stand sometime next month. 10 people are on trial on charges of robbery, abduction, and kidnapping. At least one man has indicated he'll admit responsibility and offer an apology to Kardashian.
Still to come on CTV News at noon, the vampire film Sinners continues to dominate the box office. We'll have more on its success when we return.
Now more than ever, Canadians need to know where our leaders stand. Tariffs, job security, sovereignty, an election like never before. Now more than ever, CTV News delivers a Canadian voice with perspective that cuts through the clutter, focusing on the stories that affect us all, connecting you to Canada's most trusted news, wherever you are. CTV News, now more than ever.
The tragedy in Vancouver over the weekend has been top of mind for Canadians over the past couple of days, with many posting their thoughts and their prayers online. For more, we're joined by Sam East, host of 99.9 Virgin Radio, for our regular Monday segment, Chronically Online. Sam, it's just so heartbreaking. No doubt there's been an outpouring online.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Filipino community here in the GTA, 270,000 Filipinos. Here in Vancouver, 140,000. And throughout the country, we're looking at closer to 1 million Filipinos. So when a tragedy like this happens in the community, it doesn't matter what coast you live on, you feel it. I'm half Filipino myself, so, you know, holding back some emotion here as we chat about this. Right now, there are a lot of resources that are emerging. There's a real sense of solidarity in the community, and beyond. But what we're being cautioned by is unverified campaigns. Right now, people are ready to jump in, support the community, donate in whatever way they can, but there are some unverified campaigns that are floating around. So we are cautioning people before making those donations. Right now, the focus is on support for the victims and the families. Filipino BC is the organizer of the Lapu-Lapu event. They put out a statement on social media providing local crisis hotlines for those affected and also cautioning people to avoid viewing and sharing footage from the tragedy. I know that's something, as we are on social media, we are constantly getting that information. We're being asked to hold off on that. There is also a mental health line in BC at 310-6789, along with other resources for those who may be impacted by the tragedy. And as we said off the top with all those numbers, the Filipino community is big in Canada, big in the GTA and in Vancouver, so those resources will be needed.
We appreciate you laying that out for us, Sam. Also, we have to note today is Election Day. And of course, it's garnering a lot of attention online. Social media has been a great resource for candidates over the 5 weeks to share their message, share their platforms, and no doubt a lot of voters are weighing in. What are you seeing? What are people saying before the polls close this evening?
Yeah, Michelle, we got a couple more hours to get that vote in, exercise our right to vote, and it seems like there is a different sense of urgency this time around. The account Apathy is Boring shared this note from yesterday. Preliminary estimates, 7.3 million electors voted at advanced polls in the general election. And for comparison, that's a 25% increase from the 5.8 million who cast their votes in the previous election in 2021. So the numbers are tracking with the feeling that we're seeing online that, yes, people are hungry to vote. There is an urgency to vote. A common sentiment that you'll see in comment threads is, well, if you don't vote, you don't have a right to complain if it doesn't go your way. And so there's also a lot of resources being shared right now on what exactly you need to bring when you go to your local polling station. And really, they are trying to make this process as easy for you as possible. I myself, I've probably moved 6 times in the last decade. Of course, there's always mishaps with mail and your information. They always make this as smooth and as easy as a process as possible. They just want you to get your vote in. So please, if you haven't already, do so. The momentum is continuing to build online, what we're seeing in our comment sections on social media.
And many hours left to go and have your say. Sammy's really appreciated. And remember, you can hear her on 99.9 Virgin Radio weekdays from 2 to 5. Have a great show today. Take care.
Thank you, Michelle.
Well, it was a big weekend at the box office for Ryan Coogler's Sinners.
I've been all over this world.
The vampire thriller starring Michael B. Jordan brought in $45 million U.S. in its second weekend. Disney's re-release of Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith managed to claim second place with more than $25 million in ticket sales. It beat out Ben Affleck's The Accountant 2, which raked in $24.5 million. Coming up, all aboard a new exhibit showing off the link between Canada's rail history and Hollywood. We'll have those details when we come back.
An exhibit in Montreal is giving people a look at Canadian trains which were used to film iconic movie moments.
CTV's Anastasia Dextrine has the details.
It's all aboard at Expo Rail with a one-way ticket to behind the silver screen.
And the stories that we can tell about Canada through these vehicles, that's what really interests me.
From passenger cars to steam locomotives, until the end of April, visitors can get a front row seat on trains used in iconic films. The famous trains are on view at the Expo Rail Museum in Saint-Constant on the South Shore. On the roster, hits like Transformers, The Word starring Bradley Cooper, and the biopic on Habs player Maurice Richard, known as The Rocket.
We see Julie Le Breton, who's playing Maurice Richard's wife. So she's like traveling in the streets of Montreal, and she's overhearing a conversation between 2 men who are kind of criticizing her husband.
Filming aside, education coordinator Matthew Gauthier says the streetcar from 1902 is full of historical nuggets and signage.
One that I love is this one right here. Smoking, spitting, and carrying a lighted cigar. or cigarette or pipe is not permitted in this vehicle. And the reason for that is that your vehicle is made out of wood. And here we'll see that there was a $40 fine for spitting in the streetcar. $40 back in the day, back in early 1900s, was a pretty hefty fine.
That hefty fine was to limit the spread of Spanish flu, and close quarters were common in the 1900s, as seen on the intercolonial sleeper car 531.
The curtain would come all the way down, and that would create basically like a little private bedroom. So you had a little bedroom on top, a little bedroom on the bottom. And it was very, very simple. You slept with the person sitting next to you.
That's right. That was the case even if seated by a stranger. Visitors can get on track with the facts through the museum's French immersion and Francisation programs.
So then it becomes very transversal, right? Not only are you learning French, but you're learning more about the history of Canada, you're learning about trains.
As for which train to catch first, take your pick. Anastasia Dextrine, CTV News.
All right, so go ahead.
Oh, no, who knew? Didn't know all that.
Why is he running in that shot? Yeah.
Hey, now he's having a good time. Today would be a great day to go for a run, to do anything. Yesterday was fabulous. Today is even kind of better because it's a little warmer.
Yeah, I like that. Tomorrow, warmer still, but with the risk of some thunderstorms. So we're going to recap what you need to know about that. But yes, let's talk about today. For those who are heading out to vote this afternoon, or let's focus a little more specifically on the evening, conditions are still looking pretty good. So this is maybe for the after work crew. Clear skies for the evening and into really the overnight. A little bit of an increase in cloud cover as we're waking up tomorrow morning. Mostly cloudy skies, but look at that, already near 20 degrees at 9 a.m. We're forecasting an afternoon high of 23. It's going to feel more like 28 once you take the humidity into consideration. Some parts of southwest Ontario will have their first 30-degree day of the season, but we are looking at the risk of thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon and into the evening. Keep an eye on the sky. Nathan and Michelle.
Thank you, Lindsay. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and the whole team here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great day.